Good morning. Hey, isn't it a beautiful Sunday morning? I hope you're enjoying the great weather. After the cold, wet weather we had, it's surely nice, isn't it? Boy, it's good to be here with you today. I hope you enjoy this Lord's Day and you're able to worship. Well, we're having this series talking about character. I would use the illustration of a sculptor who takes a big block of stone and begins chiseling away, and it starts taking the shape of the figure that he wants. And that's what we've been doing week by week, looking at some of the characteristics that are going to make us more like Christ. So we've looked at humility, we've looked at honesty, we talked about paying respect. And today I want to talk to you about being faithful. I'd like to begin by reading a parable that Jesus told. This is in Matthew chapter 25, and we'll start in verse 14. Jesus says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Jesus told that story, and it's a story about being faithful. Faithful. And the message, I guess, the lesson to be learned is that we are to do our very best for the Lord. That is what he is expecting. We need to be good and faithful servants. So I want to talk for a few minutes this morning about what does it mean to be faithful. Well, first of all, we know we must be faithful to Christ. Listen to Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 23. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. So we hold to our confession we have made to Christ. We hold that strong. In John chapter 15 and verse 4, Jesus said, Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. So we are to abide or remain in Christ. In other words, in a good relationship with Jesus. Well, what does that mean? Well, listen to what he said in verse 7. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. So he says, if you abide in me, how? My words abide in you. In other words, not only do we make the confession and commitment to Christ, but his words dwell in our hearts, and we're living by them. And when we do that, we are being faithful. So first of all, it's most important that we are faithful to Christ. And if you're not faithful to Christ, then faithfulness really won't matter much anyways. That's the starting point. But I want to spend the rest of my time talking about faithfulness and how we need to be faithful to others, faithful to other people. As I thought about what it means to be faithful to others, there were three things that came to mind, and that's where I'd like to spend my time for a few minutes. First of all, we must keep our word to others. Secondly, we must give our best to others. And thirdly, we need to be dependable for others. Let's talk about these for just a minute. Let's start with keeping our words. How does it feel when somebody tells you they're going to do something and they don't do it? I've had this happen to me a number of occasions with contractors. Why, they've called and said, well, I'll be out to look at this or that, and I'll give you an estimate. And so I arrange my schedule, I'm there, and then they never show up. Had that happen more than once. Or how about a contractor that you're paying to get a job done, and when the job's all completed, you find out that there were things that were supposed to be done that weren't done. How does that make you feel? Not very good. You're angry with the person, aren't you? I remember when I was a child, I used to hear this. A man is only as good as his word. What does that mean? That means that it doesn't matter about all the great things you may have done or be able to do. If you don't keep your word to other people, you're not a very good person. And I think that's still true today, don't you? If you really want to destroy your witness for the Lord, this is a great way to do it. Just make a lot of promises to people and then don't fulfill them, and see how they look at you. And then if they find out you're a Christian, well then what impression does that give about Jesus? A very poor one, doesn't it? So we need to be willing to keep our word. Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, in that context, when he said that, he meant we don't need to swear by a bunch of things that we're going to do something. Don't say, well, I'll swear on the Bible that I'll do this, or I'll swear to God that I will do this. No, no, no. He says, don't do those things. Just say, yes, I will, or no, I won't, and then do what you say. Fulfill the commitment that you make. I don't know a simpler way to put it than this. When we don't keep our word, we are liars. We don't like to think of ourselves in that way, do we? I like what it says in Psalm 15 and verse 4. This is what it says about a righteous man. It says, if they make a promise to their neighbor, they do what they promise. Well, that's what we should do, right? If we give someone our word, we should fulfill what it is we said we would do. So number one, we need to keep our word. Number two, we need to give our best. Give our best. Listen to Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 10. Solomon wrote, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. In other words, when you're doing something, give it your best effort. Think back to the parable that I read to you. Jesus talks about the 5-talent man. He was given 5 talents. What did he do? Why, here in 5 talents more. He had the ability to do that. He used all of his ability. And what did he do? He brought a good return to the master. It was the same with the 2-talent man. He had been given less, only 2 talents, but what did he do? Well, he used his 2 talents to the best of his ability, and he returned 2 more talents for the master. So he's complimented for doing a good job as well. But what about the 1 talent servant? Well, the 1 talent servant really didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He didn't really even try. And so he is scolded by the master and punished. 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 2 says, "Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful." I want to spend a moment and talk about this and I guess focus on our work. We need to be faithful employees. Faithful employees. What does that mean? It means on your job, you need to be giving your best. You need to be doing the best you can for whoever you work for. And that implies a few things. First of all, it means that we need to show up. We need to show up for work every day. And we need to show up for work on time, ready to work. I have talked to several people who talk about their workplace, and they can't get over how many people just don't show up for work. But in the past, it's not the case now because of the pandemic, but in the past, there was a shortage of workers. And so the employers would take whoever they could get, and they just had to bear with this kind of behavior. But it shouldn't be so. You should be there when you're supposed to be there. Another thing is that you need to do whatever needs to be done. You don't go to your employer and say, well, here I am, I'm ready to work, but oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Oh, no, I don't think I can do that. No, you're there, they're paying you to do what needs to be done. So you need to be willing to do whatever needs to be done. And this last one is you need to stay till the job is done. You know, sometimes it calls for maybe a few extra hours here or there, or working a day occasionally, your day off. Well, if that's what's necessary, you need to be willing to do it because you are a faithful employee. You know, let me share something else with you. Do you know this? You can give your best effort when others don't. Yeah. If you work in the workplace, you know there are workers that are like that. Why, they're just going to do what they have to get by. Maybe they're just there for the paycheck, we say, right? But that's not the way we are. Regardless of what anybody else does, we need to give our best effort for our employee. And that means giving what? A fair day's work for a fair day's pay. That's the way it ought to be. While I'm talking about this, I guess I'd like to say something to younger people. You know, you're studying or you're getting your job skills, and I know a lot of you have a resume, you're thinking about trying to get ahead. But you know something that I think is still true? The best way to get a better job is to do a good job on the one that you have. You know that's really true. There's an old saying around long before me that the cream rises to the top. Have you heard that before? I know the farmers here know what I'm talking about. The cream always, the very best always comes to the top. And that's true of us in the workplace. If we are good workers, hard workers, guess what? Our efforts will be rewarded. Now, my mother's probably watching this video, so she can verify what I'm about to tell you about my younger brother. My younger brother, I think he was 18 when he went to work for a pipeline company in Michigan. But he always had a very good, strong work ethic. He was always willing to work and work hard. And so he started all the way at the bottom. I mean, you know, the jobs, the low jobs. The pay wasn't that great, the low job, but he worked hard. And as time went on, well, this opportunity came, maybe to do a little better job. And this opportunity came, maybe to do another better job. And he took those jobs and he did them to the best of his ability. And that happened over a number of years. He's retired. Now he's younger than I am, and he's retired from Exxon. But here's the amazing thing, and this is to his credit. He did this and he advanced and he advanced and he advanced, always offered opportunities because of his good work. till finally he landed a job, an unbelievable job for Exxon. I can remember when he first landed this job, they were doing a big project overseas, and he had to go to a big meeting. I think it was in Europe. And he went there, and here he was a fella you think was very ordinary. He had a high school degree, no college, and he went there and he had this meeting. I still recall him talking about this meeting with all these engineers from all over the world, and they had PhDs. And there he was sitting in the group with his high school diploma. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen for you. But what I am saying is doing a good job and giving your best always pays off. So young people, that's the most important thing that you can do. So give your best effort at your work. Well, I need to move on. Let's go to the last one, and that is we need to be dependable. Dependable. People need to be able to count on us. Think back to the parable. The master had to go off into a distant place. He had to leave things behind. He had to entrust it to his servants that they were going to do a good job with what he had. And so they needed to be what? Dependable. Dependable. Well, we need to be dependable too. I want to talk about a couple of ways that we need to be dependable. First of all, our families need to be able to count on us. Our families need to be able to count on us. Boy, times have changed. Things have slowed down during the pandemic. Maybe there'll be some blessings from this because I can remember way back to my early days. I can remember in our family, we did so much together. Every evening we had our dinner together. As a matter of fact, it was expected that we would have our dinner together. And you know what? That kept our family bound together because we shared that meal every evening. We did our family projects together. In other words, if there was something had to be done around the house, well, Dad was going to have the boys, Mom might be involved too, and we were all out there working together, working in the garden. We all had to be out there doing our share, and when we worked on the garden. So we did all of this work together. Everyone was expected to be a part. We vacationed together. We traveled together. I remember taking a trip into Canada with a pop-up camper, and it rained almost the whole trip, but we did it all together. We did it as a family. And something else we did, we went to church together. You see, we were a family. And when you're a family, what? You are together. And being together means that you can count on one another. You can count on one another. I can't say too much about how important this is. Your family needs to be able to count on you. And what does that mean? That means when they need you, you're going to be there. You're going to be there for them. The best example I could think of from Scripture is the story of Ruth. And I'm going to have to find it here in my Bible. I didn't turn there ahead of time. But the story of Ruth. Do you remember the story of Ruth? It goes back to Naomi. Naomi and her husband and their two sons had to go to Moab because there was famine and there just wasn't food. And so they had to go to a place where they could find food to survive. And so they moved to this place. And the two sons married some women from that area. One of them was Ruth. The other was the older sister, Orpah. Well, time went by and bad fortune came because Naomi's husband died. Not only did he die, but her two sons died as well. And suddenly Naomi is left here, a woman in a foreign country, and she's lost all the men in her life. She's left alone. Who is there with her? Only Orpah and Ruth, the two daughters-in-law. Well, she thinks about her condition and she says, I'm going to go back to Israel from where I came. But the daughters, she thought about them and she was concerned for their welfare. And so she released them. She said, go back to your own people. That's what you ought to do. I know she was thinking that they needed to find maybe other husbands and have families, things that young women would want to do, but that would leave her alone. But yet she released them and let them go. So Orpah, the older one, she was willing, and so she left. But Ruth was a different story. Ruth was not willing to leave Naomi. Listen to Ruth's reply here in Ruth chapter 1, verse 16. But Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do to me and more also, if anything but death parts me from you." And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. Now that's being counted on. I like to think the word we use is loyalty. Loyalty. We need to be loyal to our families, don't we? In other words, we are bound together, we are knit together, and we're going to be there for one another. Our families are that important. Well, what about you? Can your family count on you? Are you like Ruth? Are you willing to do whatever it is you can to help your family? Well, surely we should. I'll tell you a second one I'd like to mention as well, and that is our church. Our church. Our church needs to be able to count on us. Each one of us needs to do our part. Scripture says we're like different members of the physical body. We have hands, feet, legs, arms, eyes, all of those different things, but we need them all for the body to work right. We need to be able to count on them. Well, you're a part of the body. Can your church count on you? It's sad, but some people are willing to live off of the efforts of others. It's been said, I don't know where it came from, but it's been said that 10% of the people in the church do 90% of the work. I don't know if that's true, but I know there's a small group that do a lot of work. We don't want to be freeloaders. We want to jump in and be involved and do our share as well. And the other thing is this: we need to be dependable. You get a call from one of the elders or a deacon or someone, and they're saying, "Oh, we need this. Can you help?" What should your first response be? Why, your first response, if at all possible, would be yes, yes, count me in. Because you're part of our spiritual family, the church. So you want to be dependable. It was Isaiah when the Lord said, "Whom shall I send?" Isaiah said, "Here am I, Lord." Well, that should be our attitude. We should be dependable. So, we're talking about being faithful, and here's the three things I've talked about. We need to keep our word. When we tell somebody we're going to do something, we need to do it. We need to give our best effort, and that's in all things, but particularly in our work. We need to give our best effort, be a good employee, and we need to be dependable. We need to be dependable to others, but particularly to our families and also to our church. The Marine Corps has a little slogan. It's on their flags if you've ever seen it. It's in Latin. The words are Semper Fidelis. What does that mean? It means always faithful. The Marines are always faithful to one another. That would be a good one for you and me as Christians to have. We want to always be faithful to Christ and always be faithful to others. I hope that'll help you this week. Have a good Lord's Day. I hope you have a great week. God bless.